Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Connecting the Dots webinar. I'm really excited to chat all with you about back to school with belonging, inclusive classrooms from day one. We have Katie Fielding, education content manager at Book Creator, and I'm going to read her bio because her bio is amazing. And I
Oh,
know it's going to embarrass 100% of the time, because whenever I read these, everyone's always embarrassed because you never hear about all the awesome things you do all in one spot. And so it's important because Katie is phenomenal. With
oh,
20 years of K-12 public school experience, Katie Fielding champions digital accessibility, creativity, and universal design for learning in classrooms. Specializing in technology and STEM integration, Katie creates interdisciplinary instructional experiences and shares her expertise through presentations and workshops. Recognized as the VSTE Coach of the Year in 2018 and a featured voice at ISTE Live in 2024, she holds multiple certifications, including UDL Credential 2, ISTE Certification, Google Innovator, and Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert. She is a trainer for the ISTE Certified Educator Program and works for Book Creator as their educational content manager. There you go. Round of
wow. Maybe a
applause.
little IA can polish there, right?
It's phenomenal. I love it. I guess I like reading it for a few reasons. Part of it is that I'm so lucky to be connected with so many brilliant people. Like, truthfully, like you are a part of my PLN, if those are still what we're calling them nowadays, our professional learning community where or network, PLC, PLN, that just has always pushed me to think and to grow and to be better. And thank you so much, Kate, for taking the time after your work day to come and join us here. So right off the bat, like I have like the first question because we're just going to dive right in. We're going to go and start with, how do you feel the definition of inclusion has evolved over the course of your career?
Yeah, so I think, hi everyone, really nice to be here. Um, so I started teaching, like you kind of said, in 2004, over 20 years ago. And I think when I first started, when I was a baby teacher back in the day, we didn't have one-to-one laptops. I still was using a projector, like a LCD projector, and I thought that was the best thing in the world. But that time, like to me, inclusion was really framed as like accommodations, IEPs, and meeting those legal requirements that we had. But in that evolution of 20 years, and as a disabled person myself, have kind of uh, uh, confronted my own ableism that I would have, with students in my classroom, basically, and not really understanding or always uh, being the best teacher for that.
Katie, you got muted for some reason. You got muted.
I didn't do anything.
It's okay. It's the internet. Things happen.
Oh. Um, so it started out as like a legal requirement, and then over the years, as I've confronted my own ableism, as a disabled person, like thinking about the ways that I've been ableist, I really now become a good, uh, thoughtful practitioner of UDL, Universal Design for Learning, which comes from the CAST organization. If you're not familiar with them, I would highly recommend you go do a deep dive through the UDL guidelines website. But now I really see inclusion as a really proactive design process. We as educators are designers of experiences. Like we're designing these lessons, we call them lessons, but I like to think of them as just like a learning experience. And we get to design those and we get to ensure that all students have access to all the parts of that experience. So it's not just making sure that students can, take in the information. That representation piece is really important. That's the middle part of UDL. So making sure students can take in the information. And then the blue part, which is giving them options for how they share the action and expression option. But the part that I really think is important is that green piece, the engagement piece. And it's really all about making sure students have voice and choice, in what they're doing. And so that is an aspect of accessibility, not just making sure that your things are digitally accessible, but empowering students to be motivated learners.
I love the part, well, everything you said, but the part that jumped out at me was the proactive piece
Mhm.
because I feel at the beginning of my career, it was all very reactive.
Yeah.
What is, oh, this student has an IEP. Oh, okay, what do I like? I've already built the lesson. I'm already done this. And all of a sudden, because it's log jammed 2 weeks behind, I get all 12 IEPs and my lessons have been built. And I understand the onus that teachers feel like, oh, how do I have the time to recreate this now? But like you said, now being able to be proactive, you
Yep.
can build with it in mind. And again, the UDL framework works for everyone. So
Every
even those people that do not have IEPs because of a whole host of reasons, and as Kitty and I were talking before we started letting people in, I was undiagnosed dyslexic until college. If my teachers had designed things that were accessible to people like me who were undiagnosed, my whole career as a student would have been a little bit easier. And for whatever reason, I chose to be an English teacher after finding out I was dyslexic. So clearly, I enjoy the punishment a little bit. But part of that was also owning who I was as a teacher and learning about that and using that to support those students. And so I introduced myself to my students once I started to understand the power of destigmatizing my dyslexia, and that I
Yep.
shouldn't be embarrassed by it, that it doesn't need to be a secret. I would say, hey, you're going to see me write stuff on the board, and I'm probably going to spell something backwards, or I'm going to flip stuff. I go, I get it. I'm an English teacher. You're going to want to giggle. You're going to want to laugh. I go, but I'm dyslexic. This is what this means. And every year, there would always be one kid that always comes to me and goes, me too. Like, oh, me, like, that's awesome. Or our parent that says, hey, my
Yeah.
kid came home and told me that you were very open about it. Like, this is the first adult he has seen, you know, be open about this. And so I think when we can be progressive, like I said, just to get on top of it early, proactive, it really changes everything. But
When I started sharing my disability with my students, the same thing. They weren't going to have the same disability as me, not very likely. I have cystic fibrosis. It's a rare genetic disease, but just that I experienced chronic illness and I've lived with it my whole life. Like those that also in the class had something, whether they're type 1 diabetic or whatever it might be that their disability is, like that's something that they then understood that I could empathize with.
absolutely. And we both be considered veteran educators at this point, right? I like to say veteran once you start to get past that 15-year mark. We're not old, we're veteran. We're
Experience. Experience.
experienced. Yes. What do you think are some common misconceptions that are still lingering in 2025 that started in the early 2000s or maybe the 80s and 90s when we were in school and things like that?
Yeah, I think one of the big ones is that inclusion is like having to do more work for a small group of students. And that, oh, I have to do this for this student, or I have to do this for those students over there. But really, it's designing better learning for everyone in the room. That's one. That's one. And then I think another one is that tech alone can create inclusion, and that is not the answer either. Uh, really good pedagogy and culture. Ultimately, culture is so important in uh, facing the ableist actions that happen in your classroom. And you're not always going to know that what you're doing is ableist, but it can be as simple as like restricting the number of bathroom passes you have per year. That is an ableist action. There are people like me that have a disease where my bowels are going to do what my bowels are going to do. And I'm just going to have to get up and out of the classroom past that two limit. And I shouldn't have to have a 504 or an IEP that says that that lets me out of the room more often than other people. So that would be a thing. Pedagogy and culture way above tech in making your room inclusive.
And it's funny when you talk about that because it's literally the answer for everything in teaching. Is it pedagogy based? Like,
Yeah.
that's not a new thing. Like, you mean I can't just hand my students an iPad or a Chromebook and just be like, you're learning? Like, right? And
Yeah.
the world of AI is, being with school AI for me, and I'm sure you see a book creator, it's like we need to build the structures around these tools
Yeah.
because the tool themselves are just that, right? It's no different than the overhead projector, right?
Yep.
It's just a tool. And if we don't build effective practice around it, it's pointless. And so, what you've pointed out with UDL is that, hey, we have this framework that makes everything more accessible. But if you don't have the sound pedagogy behind what you're trying to make accessible, it's pointless. You're not
Yeah.
really helping those people. And so, I think that's a really powerful thing. And I'll say one of the misconceptions too is
Yeah.
for a teacher who says, well, I learned this way, right?
Ah,
Like that's my favorite ableist response is,
uh,
I learned this way. Cool. That's
Glad it
awesome.
worked
You're,
for you.
yeah, you're very lucky. Like,
Yeah.
congratulations. Like, that's great. Do you know that friend of yours that always struggled? Guess what? It didn't work for them.
No.
Like it's
No.
so it's I found those people like, well, just it worked the way I did it. And I'm like that a party feels like, wow, they're so lucky. Like, wow, like the system as it worked X amount of years ago worked for them. But
And I think that's just evidence that they likely haven't faced a system working against them in any context. And
yeah,
that's really fortunate for them, um, whether it might be the medical system. So like disabled people are not just facing a educational system that doesn't necessarily work for them, but they're facing obstacles in a medical system that is a lot to navigate in the United States. So anywhere that we can remove barriers, and just think about how another person is experiencing the world that we may have never experienced, is really important. So that's why I always like to provide options and opportunities for empathy building. I think that's really important when working with teachers and accessibility. Um, understood.org is a really great resource if you haven't visited it before. And they have these really cool simulators where you can simulate being a student with dyslexia and you're playing a game, but you're playing a game in a way that simulates what navigating the school life with dyslexia is. They have one for dyscalculia and there's one other that they use. But understood.org, their simulations are really cool for empathy building and giving teachers just that experience of what it may be like to be trying to listen in class when all these other things are coming at you, and trying to focus. So empathy building is the core of it all.
that segues really well into something that you actually created just for this little
I
chat here. I'm
did.
gonna stop sharing here because you showed me something that I'm like, this is amazing. I want everyone to see this.
Yeah, I made a space. I mean, why else would I'm here with School AI? I can't do something without a space, right? Let's see. Here we go. All right. So I do work at Book Creator where we love students to make books, and students can utilize so many accessibility tools for themselves when they're creating books. So they can use speech to text, they can use text to speech to listen to it back, they can use speech to text to find images. And Book Creator is really accessible as far as using it with screen readers. So students that are using screen readers and other assistive technologies can create books, um, like the rest of the peers in their class, which is really cool. But what I think is the next step to having students use tools that are accessible for them are when they're creating something, adding a layer of accessibility into their workflow. So, hey, I made this book. Now I'm going to go make sure that everything when I created this product is accessible for whoever's going to read my book. So making sure it's kind of that digital citizenship, digital literacy piece, having students be accessible creators, I think is really something I'm interested in exploring, talking more about. Um, and so I made this chat bot so students can utilize it after they've made a book in Book Creator, and it will be a nice little chat that will lead them through the steps to check that their book is accessible. So it will give them reminders about things like um, alternative text for the images they might have added to their book. So that if someone's using a screen reader, those descriptions will be read to them, or adding captions if they added video, all the good practices of making digital accessible content. This little chat bot will just lead them through that process. So I'll copy it and put it in the chat to share. But yeah, I've really been thinking about this concept of making students digital accessible creators. And so something I'm excited to explore more because it's really great to make teachers accessible creators. But I think the next level is adding that into student workflows so that when they're adults, it's just part of their creation process.
That's awesome, Katie. And I think this is like that step in the direction of getting a generation to understand that your experience isn't the same experience as everyone else's, right? So that hopefully they don't become those future adults that are like, well, my way, learn it my way. They could say, actually, there are 12 ways, and I saw all of my peers learn their way. And it was something that I discovered with my project-based learning, like first my dabbling in it as an English teacher, which was like, oh, what do you mean you're not giving multiple choice tests? Like it was like these understandings of like, what do you mean you don't just do it? It's like, well, I'm letting them show me how they understand. Like I'm empowering them, right? And having, 30 different projects that all allow those students to share in ways that are meaningful. And my job is to maybe push them in directions, like lightly, to say, challenge yourself, try this, try that to personalize because, over the years, like I said, as a veteran teacher, those students that I run into, they consistently remember the projects and the work that they
Mm,
did and
yeah,
can reference it. And I had classes where almost 50% were students with IEPs or the resource room. And those resource room teachers loved the students in my class because project-based learning allowed for personalization and differentiation in a way traditional English classes didn't
it
function.
is.
Here's the essay, write your essay. Oh, make it a little bit shorter. There's your accommodation. Like that's that's it. But
Yeah.
and so
You,
to
can you remember a project that you did as a student in school?
I do. It was my English teacher. We had to give a book report. I went to an all boys Catholic school. And
Okay.
so it was strict dress code and everything like that. And I read uh, Jurassic World, so the sequel to Jurassic Park. That was
Okay.
my independent reading book. Whatever it is, that's the book I chose. And so instead of standing there and giving a book report, like standing there talking, which sort of terrified me, I said, hey, can I pretend to be a character that survived and talk about the
Mhm.
book as if it was like a documented like event, like it really happened? She just
Cool.
sort of looked at me and was like,
Okay.
why? And I was just like, I don't know, I think it'd be
Why?
fun. It'd just be fun. And she goes, okay, like totally like he's
Open to it.
engaged. I'm gonna run with this. Like we'll see. And I dressed and I got to wear a hat in class because that was like no go, but that was part of my costume. So I wore a hat and and it's 90s. This was in the 90s, so if you didn't have your hat on in school, it was like a big deal. So I had it and I did this whole thing. I came in, I threw my hat on the table, and I was like this guy, and I did my whole thing, and the kids are like, "What is happening?" But after that class, a few classes later, I had other kids start to pick that up
The
and get
thing.
permission to do it as well. The quieter kids, the kids that didn't want to stand there and like be graded on how much they're fidgeting with their hands or, how much eye contact did you look at like because I was in character and later I would do theater my senior year and in college because I realized, oh, I can do this. So for people, and again, just to talk about sometimes those ableist remarks that people make, Nick, how do you really have anxiety if you keynote in front of all those people? How can you really have anxiety when you do like it's not real anxiety if you go right like those type of things where I'm just like
Yeah.
listen, I cope in the way that I cope with my anxiety. I go to a special place and I'm a character. When I'm on stage, I'm a character. And I learned that in high school that if I'm a character, I don't have anything to be anxious about
Do
because
anything. Yeah.
I'm performing, right? And
Yeah.
so, those type of things that I learned as my coping mechanisms, right? I became as a teacher, giving those kids those opportunities to do those same things. Like I let a young lady give her speech in class before school only to the friends that she wanted there.
Nice. Yes.
And
And
the,
that's easy, such an easy accommodation, right? Or
yeah,
an easy lift, right? Okay, let's do it in the morning.
yeah.
Now
And her friends showed up
I
and
have a
cheered her
follow-up.
on.
I have
Yeah.
a follow-up question. What was your favorite test you took?
See, that's my favorite one. It's funny because I do that question in my keynotes. The same thing. This is why you and I are besties. Like, because that's it. You tell everyone close your eyes. Remember your favorite multiple choice test you took.
That
What
was
was
brilliant.
that?
My
Like
favorite.
I remember like the ACT and the anxiety that it gave me because of the pressure and all of the things in the multiple choice tests, and I'm being timed and I'm reading the same question 7 times in a row. Like, and it's funny because you're trained as a teacher that that's how you're supposed to teach. And
Hmm.
then I started to teach that way because you're a new teacher and you do what you're told. And then I
Well,
started to see kids.
you're supposed to gather data from
Yes.
150 kids in a
Hmm.
day.
Yeah.
Um, so how else are you going to do it? Um,
Right. And
yeah.
so then I would see the kids struggle the way that I struggled and then was confused. I'm like, that kid participates in kick butt all day. I gave him the 50 multiple choice questions in the 55-minute class and they didn't do well. That's weird. And just realizing, oh, and then you dig into the data of it. You dig into the science of multiple choice tests. 98% of all teachers are not qualified to make multiple choice tests.
Write them. Yes.
It's
Having
it's
been a
nuts.
central office curriculum person and uh, wrangling people to help write like test questions for the district, yeah, it was a challenge. I
Yeah,
love
I
Allison's comment in the chat. She says her favorite test was the last one ever in school. She knew there wouldn't be any more. And
yeah.
I think that's accurate, right? No one walks away like being excited about a test except for that last one they've
Yeah.
taken.
And I think everyone here and Katie yourself and anyone that ends up watching, like for those of you that have differentiated, for those of you that have done those little, maybe at the time you just thought it was like an act of grace, like you made a gigantic difference in that child's life by giving them like that one girl who came in the morning and her friends cheered her on and were like, yeah, it's like it just like she needed that. And then the next time she was like, I can do it. Can my friends visit from their study hall? Absolutely, they can come in the class. You're like,
Everyone needs their support humans.
yeah. And that's if that's how I got her from this to there, cool. And if by senior year she's finally up to awesome. How did she get there? Who cares? Like that's
Right.
like the thing that we're trying to create when we talk about those inclusive classrooms from day one. I was always annoyed when early in my career I was asked for my teacher notes because I didn't have them. Like
Mm.
I didn't like I read the book, I knew the book, we talked about like I would have bullet points and I'm like, these are my notes. And so for me and how I processed, taking a lot of notes was not how I worked. Like because being dyslexic, it's a nightmare. Like to take a whole bunch of notes. So when I started to be like, okay, I need to do this for my kids, but I don't think I'm actually the best one to take notes. I developed a space in class where kids would rotate and take digital notes and we would post
Ooh,
them online, and kids
love
would
that.
fight for their turn to be the official note taker. And
Did you have any
Mr.
kids
P,
do sketchnoting in that spot? Like I
say
can
that
see some kid like whipping out the sketches in it.
there were some kids
Yeah.
that really dove into it and were like, "Can I go again? I really like to take the notes on the computer." And I was like, "Well, why don't we allow kids to do that? Like some
Yeah.
kids do better like processing that way." Like, and so then I got more than one note taker because, well, if they're writing this down, they're not listening. So that kid needs like it's so I developed this program. And so now every single kid in class, even if it was just a kid who had a sore throat and wasn't there, now had access to those notes in an accessible way, right? Like those things was a lift on my end, but once I established it, it normalized taking notes. It normalized what we should be paying attention to. I'm also teaching kids valuable note-taking skills as they get
Yeah.
ready for college. For those who took notes, I told kids I didn't really get good at note-taking like the way that you listen to a lecture until college.
I
Like,
still don't even understand Cornell notes.
no,
I
neither do I. That's
about.
I do Roman numerals. I do Roman numerals and I decide what's a subheading and what's not. It makes sense to me. And in college, people look at my notes and go, how do you do? Like, I know it. Like, this is my pattern. And I think
Yeah.
as a teacher, being okay with kids choosing a path to learn, but having the conversation with them that says, okay, I'm going to give you this path that you want to take. Understand if it's not working, though, I'm going to give you some options for these
Yeah.
different paths that you
I
can do.
think all kids need examples, right? Especially with note taking. It's something we don't really teach anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know if it was ever taught, but maybe you just saw different methods from the way different teachers did it on their overhead projector with their vis-a-vis markers. But yeah, I think kids need it's a good skill to learn how to take in information and and store it basically. So you got to find the way to store it that's best for you. Yeah.
That's awesome. I think we're at like this is how quickly time flies. Like boom, we are at so much way. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you one sort of final question that
Okay.
is I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this, but I really would love to hear what would you tell a teacher who says, okay, what's the first step I can take in class tomorrow or
Mm.
during my planning period tomorrow? Like, what advice would you give that teacher's like, what can I start? What baby step gets me moving in that direction?
I think it would just be, this is going back to the culture piece, but like building those relationships with students. Once you have those relationships and you're giving students an open opportunity to share with you the ways that they learn best and the things that they need, they don't have an IEP for, that's the first thing you can do. And the relationships will take you far in so many directions with pedagogy. I mean, that's the base thing. And then go look at the UDL guidelines if you've never seen them and start to get familiar.
It's a perfect answer. And I'll add to that and say utilizing a space as like a bell ringer at the start of your
Yes.
school year, just to say, hey, let's talk about what works for you. It's private. Some kids feel more comfortable typing it out instead of writing, right? That's makes it more
A-
accessible for
yeah,
those kids.
a back
Hmm.
channel is always really powerful.
Yeah, so then you have that data of how they are, what they're feeling, and then you can check in with them. So consider building that space that is just a, hey, how do you learn space?
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like what do you prefer? And just having that as part of discussion when parent teacher conferences come up and say, I
Mhm.
talked to Billy and Billy says they prefer this way. Or when that teacher comes to you and says, hey, how do you deal with teaching with Billy? You go, oh, Billy didn't tell you or you didn't ask. Like he likes this way and he performs wonderfully. Like I always hated what, especially when I got really deep into UDL and I would have those teachers and we're just talking at lunch. They're like, oh, so and so such a pain. And I just go, that kid's a rock star. I'm like, what are you talking about? That kid, like, and I would feel guilty to be like, listen, I don't want to say it's you, but it's
And but
not
then
Billy.
also sometimes you're in the conversations, you're like, oh, it is me. Then this is where I can go with that student in my class. So yeah, that's the best part of a lunchroom is learning from each other, hopefully.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. As we wrap this up, if you are not part of our champions community, I want to give you this opportunity to remind you to go ahead. You can go to School AI. I'll type this in here, .com/champions, to get all of the updates in our community. And we've got some fun early access stuff that we're rolling out that you're going to want to see and be a part of. Thank you for that. We don't have to worry about that. Champions, you can find all the information in our Champions Drive folder at the top. You can join the WhatsApp channel, Facebook group we have there, and I also have the weekly updates posted as there as well. And for those of you in the Champions community and you're earning your points by being here today, remember those points can get you an opportunity to win a full trip to the ISTE ASCD conference in Orlando this summer and a day at Disney World Magic Kingdom with me I mean, that's sort of the you're stuck with me, but you get to
Wow.
go. We will have three winners as part of this whole trip. So if you have tons of questions that you want to explore about that, feel free to message me in the community or Nicholas at schoolai.com. I want to thank everyone. Uh, Katie, if people wanted to reach out to you or see more of what you do, uh, where would we find you and what would we do?
Yeah, you can find me as KDF on most social platforms. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Katie Fielding and I'm there.
Anything cool coming up with Book Creator?
Ooh, yes.
Okay.
We're gonna have, we just had AI Literacy Week last week, so we're posting all the recaps from those. So if you didn't join us, feel free to join us. And yeah, we were glad to have you on last week, Nick. So go watch the School AI episode. It was really good.
It was a great time talking about AI literacy, and I love having these opportunities to talk to great educators doing amazing things like Katie with Book Creator, and all the other conversations that she forces people to have when she goes and speaks, because that's, for me, that's what I view as a true leader in the education community is that they speak and people feel like compelled, like, I gotta talk about this. Like they've brought up a point that I need to dive into. And I feel whenever I see Katie share anything, it's just that, oh wow, I didn't consider that. And sometimes that's all it takes to get people moving forward. So, Katie, I really appreciate you taking the time. For everyone else, definitely find Katie on the socials, School AI. Follow us on all the socials as well. If you're a Taylor Swift fan, we just dropped a new contest involving winning movie tickets to see Taylor Swift's movie next week, Friday. So if you follow us on the socials, you can find out what your favorite era is and share it and win an opportunity in certain cities to go see the Taylor Swift Showgirl movie. I'm not up to date on exactly all of the details of the movie, but people seem to be really excited about it. So
Yeah.
put that on your calendar, check your socials, and I thank all of you so much for being here tonight. Stay tuned. We have a sandbox in October. We're going to be discussing the teacher dashboard and how that can help us really check in on our students and see how they're doing. So you can find that on the events page as well. So thanks again, Katie. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And I hope everyone has an amazing evening. Take care, everyone.